Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the One Last Cast podcast. My name is Jonathan, and as always, we have Merriel Solesky here. Say hi, Merriel.
How's it going, guys? It's good to see y'all in 2024. New year, excited about the challenges this year.
Yeah, so for those of you who are listening on from podcasts, the streaming, this is our first episode of 2024, episode 47. And glad to have you on board. We are live. We try to go live every other Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook and YouTube. You can find us at facebook.com/One Last Cast podcast. Also, search up that same name on YouTube, and you can find us there. And some big things happening for this year. And be happy to announce, if you haven't seen our Facebook page, that we have launched our website, onelastcastpodcast.com. You can find not only all of our podcast episodes that we've done, even some of them that have not been published, just because of audio issues for whatever reasons. Most of them were audio issues, but there's some unpublished episodes there. Also, I'm going back to writing blogs, so reports and detailed accounts. You can find that there. Maybe I'll get Merrill to help me out with some of those. I know he said he's not a writer, but I'm going to try to convince him to submit some content as well. Also, if we do any video content, not only will it be on our YouTube, it will be on that website as well. So just go check it out, and love to hear what you think. Just send us a message in any way that you can, and tell us that, hey, I love the website. Hey, I hate the website. Just whatever you think, let us know, and we'll see what we can do about it. So, but
You want
Merrill,
to talk? Yeah, I was gonna say, do you want to talk about our fishing journey together, or you want to go straight into bringing the guest on and we talk about that
yeah,
situation?
we'll quickly kind of touch up on it. So, for those of you who are not native to Houston, on last Tuesday or so, it was freezing. Actually, I think we went on Wednesday. It was still freezing. The morning temperature when we got out there was around 22 degrees Fahrenheit. It was cold, and but that's when we love to head out, because when it gets cold like that, the trout like to concentrate up, and it can be really, really good fishing. The big girls like to come out. All the fish are generally fat, and we decided kind of a last minute thing that Merrill said, "Hey, let's go." And we went out to an area that we've been to before. We haven't been to together in probably like 4 or 5 years, right?
Yeah, it's been a while. I think we
Yeah,
were fishing last time we fished together. I think it was this kind of the same area, but not the same place.
yeah, yeah, that's correct. And but we were trying to fish the same way, just fishing all these deep drop offs. There's a lot of mud and shell kind of mixed in there, and goes from like 2 to 3 foot, and it drops until 6 to 8 plus. Um, and there's some areas where traditionally, at least I've experienced, where they like to congregate. And we got out there, and it was cold. There was some ice. I don't know if you noticed, but whenever we hopped onto the bank, you heard crunching on underneath your boots and stuff like that. That was just ice just breaking. And we got out there, and it was cold. I forgot my buff, so my face was cold. We have a picture up somewhere on our Facebook page where we took a picture together, and I looked like a popsicle. But we were later up correctly. We got out there. We caught fish, just not trout. We just caught a lot of redfish to start the day. I think we caught probably about 4 or 5 or 6 redfish between the two of us. Some solid reds, nothing to write home about. They're probably mid slot. And we left them. I know that the cardinal rule is that you don't leave fish to find fish, but we left them because we were looking for trout. So, one of the interesting things, which I kind of detailed in our blog post on onelastcastpodcast.com, that while we headed out towards open water, it actually got colder. So we decided to actually head back the other way up to where our launch was, where the water got warmer, and we went back there, and there was more bait movement, and it just took us a while, but we ended up figuring out some trout. How the trout wanted the baits, and we picked up some trout, and it was just nice. So, so
Yes, yeah, yeah. So I mean, once we saw the bait busting, I think we hooked up to a couple fish there. It was just wasn't the right size. I think they were barely legal ones right there. So I maybe I should have stayed there and fished for some more. I just felt like, not the ones I'm looking for. Let's just keep moving. So
Yeah.
we went through that little school of fish, and we went further back, and then we found a good rhythm, caught a couple, saw some friends out there having fun. Yeah, it was a good time. I had a good time. I was actually well insulated, so I didn't really feel that cold.
Oh, I was insulated too. Just my face. My face
Oh
was
yeah,
just
so
numb.
I had a beard, so I have the
Yeah.
fortunate. Good thing about beard in the cold is it helps keeps you warm. Um, so yeah, it was a good time. I had a good time. So I mean, we I don't know. Is there something you would have learned from that experience on that fishing trip that you're like, okay, that's new? And to me,
Yeah.
that's go ahead. Yeah, go.
Yeah, no, I felt like the areas where we were catching redfish, the trout should have been there as well. And I just don't know why they weren't there. It could have been the temperature. They knew, trout are a lot more sensitive to temperature than redfish are. So
Right.
I read somewhere that where if the water temperature hits below 45 degrees, that's when they start dying. If they stay in there too long. I read that somewhere. I can't cite my source. I just read it somewhere. Don't know if that's true
Well,
or
I
not.
thought it was so. Okay, I heard the same thing, but it was like 36. I thought was the temperature.
It may have been so it made more sense whenever we got to where we were at end of the day. So actually, what the temperature I read at the where we were fishing with open water, it was something like 48 degrees, 47, 46 degrees out there. And then when we got to where we ended up fishing at the end of the day, it was 52, 53. So it's a huge difference.
Right.
And there was just, and there were big fish, big trout where we ended up in the day. It's just, we couldn't figure out that pattern quick enough. And I think the bite just kind of died down. That tide was pushing in pretty good when we were out there.
Oh,
So,
Jonathan got a big surprise too.
oh yeah, ended up.
Yeah, it was a bit.
I had a brief glimpse of like, oh man, I have a 30-inch trout on. Ended up being this 3 4 foot, 3 4 foot alligator gar. Hit it like a
I,
freight train, set the hook, and I thought I had this nice trout on because it just came up and it flashed because under the water, even though it's like a dark green color, it kind of flashed. And I'm like, oh man, that may be a trout. But then after it started digging a little bit, like this isn't a trout.
yeah.
So
All right, man. Let's bring on our guest, dude. I'm
yeah.
I've been preaching these motors and kayaks and been catching some heat for saying that, but I'm gonna stick to my guns. I think it's the future.
Yeah.
Um,
So we're happy to announce this conversation started sometime in December, November of last year. I just couldn't fit him in. And we've been talking with Bixpy and glad to have Houman Nikmanesh. I'm sorry, I probably butchered that, but he's backstage right now, and he's the founder of Bixpy Kayak Motors. I don't think actually that it's just Bixpy Motors. Don't know if this Kayak Motors is in the name, but they're well known for their kayak motors here in the industry. Before we bring them on stage, definitely want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Knocking Tail Lures. If you're looking for one of the best soft plastics on the market, look up knockingtaillures.com. You can find their stuff there. Also, for a printing, they do our custom gear, such as our towels, and they can do buffs and shirts and stuff like that. So reach out to Aaron and he'll take care of you. DSK, Dirty South Kayak Anglers. If you're looking for a Facebook group to join and talk fishing with, look up Dirty South Kayak Anglers on Facebook. And also, Brittany Solesky, Merrill's lovely wife. She is a realtor based here in Houston, Texas. If you're looking for real estate, commercial or residential in Houston, Texas, reach out to her. You can give her a call at 281-740-0498 or Brittany, that's Britney at grindstonereg.com. Any sort of real estate needs from her, reach out to her and she'll get you taken care of. Now, definitely want to just jump right into it and welcome Houman back here. So how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Just wanted to again thank you for joining our show. And the way that we have our show set up today is let's kind of give a roadmap for all of our listeners. Kind of talk about the past. How did you get into create Bixpy, or how did Bixpy come about? Let's talk about the present, some of the stuff on offerings that Bixpy has to offer. And then my favorite part, what I'm really interested in, is we're going to talk about the future in the very end, where you see the kayak motor technology or battery technology progressing to. So kind of give you the floor here, and let's talk about how did Bixpy come to be?
Yeah, sure. So I think I've probably said this story a few times, but I exited from a previous company and had a bit of time on my hands. So I was out sailing and kayaking with a Hobie kayak off the coast of San Diego. And at the same time, I was looking for something new to do. So I was considering going into the e-bike industry or the skateboards and so on. So I was playing with the batteries and the motors. And then on one of the kayak trips, we sort of got stranded a little bit, and we were fishing actually, because a buddy of mine is a fisherman. So we sort of struggled back, had a few drinks. So it was really tough pedaling back. It's a big kayak, it's like a dual, that big Mirage Revolution sailing kayak. So anyhow, so we decided
the Adventure Island. It was the big old Adventure. Okay,
there you go. Yeah, the Adventure Island. Yeah. And there was no wind when we were coming back, so it was, it's like, crap, so you gotta make this back. So we thought, all right, we're gonna put a motor on this, and because I'm good, I'm sort of good with tinkering with stuff. So we'll put a motor on this. We went out and looked at some trolling motors, but they're just sort of ugly and bulky, and there was no good way to put them on. And then there was like, you got to get the lead acid battery or something. And then as I was playing with these motors, I thought, hey, I could probably put one of these motors on this kayak and get it. I mean, it can move a bike, right? So it should be able to move a kayak over water. So that's kind of how it started. And then we actually developed the first motor. We even put it into a scuba with sort of a handheld battery where you could go scuba diving and snorkeling with it. So then we released the whole product line, giving you options to either put it on a kayak, a paddleboard, or even a handheld battery where you could use it as a scuba and snorkel propulsion vehicle. So that's how the whole thing came about. So I thought, 3 months, I'll have a product out the door. I'd never made a product before, never done anything like this. I was always in the service industry. But it took about 3 years for the first product to hit the shelf. And it was a small batch. We went through Indiegogo at that point, released the product. We sold more than we thought. Well, not too much more, but it was quite stressful releasing it. And it was just a typical nightmare, it was a year delayed. And when things came in, they didn't do quite what they said they would do. So some back and forth, but finally we released the product. We are now on the third iteration of it. So I'll talk about that a bit more as we keep going.
Yeah,
that was actually going to be one of my questions. Like, I guess you're continuously developing I should say a better motor, but progressing the motor to fit different aspects of. So you're more than just fishing, or is it like fishing and the bikes? Because I know bikes, they have there's a big field in the bikes. I didn't realize how big that was, but there's pretty big.
Sure, e-bikes are huge now. E-bikes, and companies like Rad Bikes that sell hundreds of millions of dollars worth of e-bikes a year. So, so I don't know. Maybe I chose the wrong guy.
No. I like what you have. So
so what's interesting is, when I was debating what to do, I realized that the bike space was quite crowded already. So I thought it'd be really challenging to get in there and do a startup on a shoestring budget. So that's why we ended up here, actually, because I thought, the marine propulsion really interested me, and it was very unique, right? Nobody else was really doing this. So the answer to that is we built the first motor. It was like nothing else that was out there, right? And even to this day, we have a 2.5-inch propeller that propels a 400, 500 pound kayak and fisherman, right? Nothing else like it is still out there. So it was quite unique, but that also came with some very heavy learning lessons, right? So we've had to learn some stuff really the hard way. And how do you spin a motor that fast and not have things break on you and heat up on you and things like that. So we continue improving the product, and we continue adding adapters, new batteries, and all of that as well. So
yeah, so actually that brings up a interesting thing that I wanted to talk about was a lot of us don't have the, we're not developing products out there, but in this situation where you're developing something extremely new, where you don't have a lot of experience, and what was the biggest surprise that you had when you're developing a motor, a marine motor that you didn't even consider that was a thing during your development period?
So that I think it's really actually nice if you get into something like this and you're not very smart, because you tend to do things that smarter people wouldn't do, right? Because you're just ignorant. So I just thought, hey, this should be pretty easy, right? I mean, this is no problem. I mean, geez, like I get on my cell phone and I call someone and it goes to space and it comes back and it talks to someone at the end of the world. How hard can it be to put a motor in a kayak, right? Let's do it. And I was very fixated by making sure the motor fits through the opening of a Hobie Mirage drive. So that was the whole thing. Is like, that motor has to be that small. That's it. It just has to be.
That's not much space. That is not.
It's not.
That's not much space.
83.
Like if you try to grab like a regular trolling motor with the head on it, it won't fit in that. Like at all.
No. And I was very fixated on that. And so and that was that's how the whole thing sort of came out, and it had to be so unique because whatever else I got, it wouldn't fit in that hole, right? So, and that was quite a challenge. I didn't think it would be that hard, honestly, but because of that, we had to reinvent the whole way the propeller and the shroud and everything works, right? We couldn't put a typical propeller in there. So then we had to figure out, if you put a really small propeller, then how fast do you spin it, and what does that do to everything? So we had to sort of reinvent this impeller/propeller thing just to be able to fit in there. So that process was very long. Building that propeller was a big project. So, but yeah, so the challenge and then the idea that what you can prototype is actually quite easy, but to take it into mass production is incredibly challenging. Because once you get into mass production, all kinds of things fail on you that you never even imagined. And it's very different than building 1 or 2 or 10 even units of something. So, yeah. So that was all learning lessons for me.
Yeah, but now you've created a very robust product that's been on the market for a while. So I guess how did you? So and correct me if I'm wrong. The ones I know of are the J1, J2, and then the K1. I believe is the recent. That's right. Yeah, the recent iteration. Mm-hmm. So I guess how did you go from a J1 to J2 and then now the K1? What was that process like?
Right. So basically from J1 to J2, the big change was that the J1 was just a motor. And what it did was you were able to plug that motor to different things. And then one of the big hurdles was for us to be able to attach that motor to a battery that you can then snorkel with. So that battery had to be waterproof to about 100 feet or 150 feet under. So a lot of the design in the J1 was based on the fact that it had to come off of your adapter and then be able to clip onto a battery, and then you'd be able to snorkel or scuba dive with it. That sort of made the product very complicated in terms of user interface, because you had to then have that connector perfectly done all the time. And if you didn't do it perfectly, water would get in there and it would, cause all kinds of problems. And, we had a good percentage of people who were really good with it. And then we had just a percentage of people who just didn't get it and just didn't. So they were constantly having trouble with the product. And it was a headache for us. It was a headache for them. So we decided on the next run, and we were going to come off the whole snorkel scuba diving space. We just, we were spread too thin into two very different spaces. We had kayak, paddleboard, on the water, and then we had in the water. It was just a bit too much. So we decided we're going to come off that sort of space anyway. So let's not worry about this motor plugging in. So then we build the cable into the motor. And that allowed the motor then to just be a little more robust in the sense that there was no chance somebody failing with that connector or anything like that. So that was the major difference from going to the J1 to the J2. But even when we were doing that, we were already working on the K1. So because we already knew there was going to be a product sort of down the line. It was quite a long process because we're trying to build a series of motors based on the same platform. And the K1 is the first one. And that was quite a process, but that's quite a different motor. It's based on a completely aluminum housing. There's no more plastic. Everything is anodized and then UV protected, and then another coating for durability so it doesn't get scratched and scraped as easily. So that, we learned a lot about aluminum and extrusions and stuff like that on that K1. But now we have a motor that we can actually expand line into and make future product with. So,
and that actually gets me to another question in regards to the naming of your product. So, is there a reason why it starts with J, and of course K? It's like you stepping up. What happened to the A, B, C, and B to start off with?
Right. So the J came from that it was a jet. And there was no J1 until there was a J2 actually, because first it was just J, and then it was like, oh, we're gonna make a new one, so let's call that one J2. And I think it was I think GoPro must have been the same way, because there was no GoPro 1 and 2. I think there was first one that was GoPro 3 or something, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's how it came about. And then the K, we wanted to get away from that whole J model because there was such a dramatic difference between the K and the J. So we put all our heads together and we're like, well, what's the next one going to be? And, we had a number of meetings and we just said, well, we'll just go to the next letter. So we'll make it K. So that was so we made it.
Wait to see what Z looks like.
That's right. Yeah. There will be other motors with different letters, and then at the end there will be a meaning to all of it. But I can't tell you that now. So we'll wait for the other ones to come out.
So I'm trying. The battery is inside the motor. Is that correct?
No.
Oh, I thought I heard you say
are
that.
outside. Yeah. So the motor.
Battery, okay.
Yeah. So that motor is about the size of a water bottle. And maybe one day we'll get to the point where you can squeeze a battery into that space. But right now the battery. So we have two batteries. One of them is for more sort of recreational use, so day use if you want to go out and it'll keep you on the water for about 4 to 6 hours. It floats. It's really the ergonomics, so you can put it under a seat. You can bungee it down to a paddleboard. And then we have this sort of heavy duty battery. It's in a massive anodized aluminum case. It's for the tournament guys, right? The guys who want to stay out there all day. They don't want to worry about the battery.
What amp and volts are we pushing with that one? I don't know much about these motors, so forgive me if I'm asking questions because I am interested.
Yeah, it's good. Because
I go like 9. Sometimes I think the farthest we've been was on a kayak. I think we went 9.5 miles offshore. But I love to go offshore. I love to troll for kingfish. I love to go hunt for snapper, cobia, the whole nine. But having a good motor is something that I'm interested in. So
sure. I'm
going to be asking you a lot of questions about these. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You went out 9 miles one way?
Yeah, one way. That's correct. We went to the
That's brave.
That wreck. The wreck right outside of
is it Liberty?
The wreck outside. Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
that's it. That's where we went to and we caught snapper out there. Wasn't big ones. So, but came back and we do journeys like that. I think that's the farthest I've been. That's not the farthest I've been offshore on a kayak. I was actually on Adventure Island with Victor Cisneros, where we were actually out further than that on a sail. But there was wind. We were lucky to have wind.
Yeah.
And we did have a motor, right? We had a 5 horsepower Evinrude motor that we built like with the whole. I don't know if you've seen it with the 2x6, right? And then it's got it goes into the rod holders, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the bracket, and it attaches to the bracket, and you're putting gas in it. You're always putting gas in it. We got caught in a rough storm one time, and it's just,
That's a pretty capable kayak or a boat or whatever you want to call it.
It's a boat. It's not a kayak anymore.
Yeah, it didn't have boat. We had both the pontoons out and on the whole nine on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 160 pounds or something. It's 18 and a half foot long. It's a boat. Yeah, I mean, you need a trailer for it, right?
Yeah, I got a funny story about that, right? So we're launching and we're somewhere in South, or we're in Pins, right? And one of the bands came off the outriggers. So one of the thing that clips on, right, to the metal bar that goes on, that one of the clips came off of the rubber thing, and we were just watching a huge shark just jet line in the first gut, second gut. He was all over the place, and Victor's like, I'm not getting in the water to fix that. So,
yeah, right.
But I think I kind of figured it was a hammerhead, and hammerheads don't typically attack humans, right? But
typically, yeah.
Typically.
Yeah.
So I ended up jumping in the water and fixing that, and then we got back out there. And we were still around the first or second or third gut when that happened.
Yeah, that's a cool sailboat. You can get yourself in trouble with that boat for sure.
Oh yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
You better know how to work that mast and not get caught with big winds with that sucker all the way out. You'll get in trouble.
You're right. Yeah. So we do have those two batteries. And so that's a small one, and then the big one, like I said, and then you're asking about amperage and watts and so on. So we measure everything by watt hour because that's the most fair way to measure a battery because that takes into consideration what the voltage of the battery is. So we have high voltage batteries. They're about 25 to 30 volts when they're full. And at those voltages, your amp hours are less because it's a function of the voltage. So then we go by watt hours and we name all of our batteries after the amount of watt hours they have in them. So we have a PP378, which means it's 378 watt hours. And that's the equivalent to probably about roughly a 30 amp hour 12 volt battery. So that'll keep you on the water for up to 10 hours trolling and up to about an hour and 15 minutes full speed. And then the bigger guy will do 2.5 hours full speed and then up to about 28 hours of trolling. So somewhere between 24, 28 hours of trolling.
So if I use your motor, it's only you can only attach that motor to your battery, or can we use a different battery to your motor, or would that take some engineering to do?
No, that would take a lot of engineering to do. So yeah, we really try to lock up the system and we try to keep control of that user experience. I know some people don't like it and they say, well, I'd like to put my battery on your motors and your motors on other batteries. But it's very difficult for us to do that because our motors have such specific needs, right? They need to run at that high RPM and they need to be kept cool. You can't push too much amperage through them. So we don't want to open it up because then we'll have all kinds of other headaches and problems to deal with. Yeah. So our system is a closed system. So you use our motors and our batteries, and we try to keep them as reasonably priced as possible. So then you don't really have a need to go and look for other batteries. So
it actually reminds me of a science experiment we did when I was in middle school, where actually it wasn't an experiment. We were just kids that we got left alone in a classroom. We were actually learning about batteries that day, and we decided that. The teacher left us and let's attach every single battery that we had in the classroom to a fan that we had that they're using as a demonstration. Obviously the fan was not rated to attach every single one of those batteries together. And it basically unscrewed itself and flew off and embedded itself in the ceiling. And the teacher came back and was looking at the fan and we were just sitting there like we didn't do anything. But it's perfectly understandable where you have a product like, with that you've designed that has its tolerances and anything that's outside of that could really mess up your engineering that you've done with it. So
right. And that's sort of the argument. And we do get, like I said, some people who get a little bit upset with us and like, oh, you should open it up. But I mean, that's what we build and it's sort of the way it is. And we like keeping that experience sort of in-house, and now we have an app actually for the product as well, where you can update your firmware and you can sort of make sure that if we have any bugs or any issues we find down the road, you're able to update that like you would with your phone, right?
Oh, awesome! So, I wasn't aware that you guys had an app now.
Yeah, we do. So it's not so we're building the app up. So down the road, we'll have the app to be more capable and actually be able to control your battery and so on. Right now, all it does is basically allow you to update your firmware, make sure everything's up to date. If you have a new feature for the remote, I know we have a new feature coming out for the remote in a few months, so we'll be able to push that out with the app. And so we'll actually be able to keep your batteries up to date, which is kind of unique for a product like ours, right?
Yeah.
But we can only do that when we have that sort of closed user experience where you're not allowed to tap into the product and do anything else with it. So
and actually, I think this is a really good, perfect segue into kind of talking about kind of the present, like where you guys are at right now with the J2 and the K1. So I'm a little bit more familiar with it, and I don't think Merriel is familiar with it at all. So
no, I have like a ton of questions. I keep stopping myself from not asking these questions, but yeah, go ahead.
But so let's kind of talk about, give us the elevator pitch for like the J2 and the K1.
Yeah, so the J2 we've sort of discontinued now. So we sold the last of them a few months ago, and we're all about K1 now. So we're gonna continue improving that, and we'll probably be selling that product for a while to come, and we'll make improvements in every batch we make, because we'll take whatever feedback we get from our support department, whatever feedback we get from our users, and we'll just keep pushing that into the product as much as possible. So that's going to be our basically equivalent to 1 horsepower motor that works really well on sort of small personal watercraft. So if you've got a kayak, a paddleboard, or a small dinghy, and so on, you can use a bigger motor for sure, but it won't get you going much faster. You're hitting a hull speed in most fishing kayaks about 4.2 miles an hour. So even if you put a bigger motor, you're not going to go any faster. So that's the product we're going to continue sort of pushing along. And then, of course, on the side, we're working on bigger motors and motors for other applications that are beyond that personal use, right? So, and we're building everything in the sort of same direction with the same form factor now. So whatever we do is sort of we'll be able to expand on as we go forward.
So how would I attach a Bixpy motor to okay, we'll say a Hobie, and then is it Hobie only, or is it Hobie kayaks in the whole, and there's other attachments for other kayaks? Keep in mind, I know nothing about these motors.
So that's where we really excel, right? So we pay as much attention to the product as we do to the adaptation of it. So we have probably about 20, I want to say 25. I know we have 2 or 3 new adapters coming out. We have 25 roughly adapters that allow you to motorize pretty much any kayak in the industry, especially the bigger fishing kayaks. Then of course there's paddle boards. So for the paddle boards, for example, we use the fin boxes. So we have 3 different fin box adapters for different paddle boards: hard boards, soft boards, and inflatable kayaks, right? Then we have we do have a number of Hobie specific adapters. So we have a twist and stow for the Revolution kayaks. I don't know if you probably don't have one of those in you got a PA, right?
No, I have a Revo. I have a PA 360. I have an Outback. I have quite a few.
I've been using the twist and stow, which replaces the rudder on your Revo.
On your Revo, yeah. So that was one of the first ones we made because it was so simple to make, right? So we just took that space that Hobie had on their rudder, and we built an adapter for it. And that was one of the I think we have 5 adapters when we released the product. That was one of them. And then of course there's the Mirage Drive adapter. That's a very popular one because you just pop out your pedal drive, pop in the motor, and from the last 5 years, a lot of companies have been using that. So that now fits sort of a gamut of different kayaks. Then we have an adapter for the power pole, and then we use that power pole adapter with screws and nuts and bolts, and also with double-sided tape. So we figured out a way to actually tape that thing to some kayaks, like double-side tape it, which is really cool. It's like the easiest. You just peel and stick this thing on your kayak, and you're done. You got to be patient. It takes about 3 days for that bonding to sort of really adhere. But yeah, that's really cool. And then we have a new adapter coming out with the Oru kayaks. Those are those folding origami kayaks, right? We have an adapter coming out with them next week. So yeah, we've got that's like all we do, man, is just sit here and like figure out how to stick motors on different things. So that's our big thing. Oh, we got one for Feel Free, we got one for Bonafide, we've got one for the boat inflatable guys, BOTE.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. What about my Jackson guys? My Jackson homies out there.
Jackson, yeah. So Jackson is almost all power pole. You can put power poles on all of them.
Cool.
And then because they all have the power pole adapter plate on the back. And we have rudder adapters. And then of course we have sort of the traditional transom adapter that you sit and you have a tiller arm and you steer with that. So yeah, like that's all we do is just figure out different ways to attach this motor to stuff. So
yeah, most of the paddle kayaks will their rudder adapters will just fit those, and it works really well. Yeah.
So what about have you ever thought about I don't know if you have, but I know spot lock is, y'all ever get into like a motor that can spot lock in an area? Because that's something I'm interested in, but I've heard a lot of negative stuff, like, you know, it works good for a while, different motors, different people, different stuff, right? Maybe they're abusing it, I don't know, but I fish in some areas where I like to just, you know, hit a button and just stay in place and fish, you know, regardless of the current or the wind or what's happening. I feel like not only getting from point A to B a lot quicker, or from A to B to C, and maybe these further places you never gone, having a motor gets you to those places, but also just staying in place is also something I would love to add to my arsenal as I'm fishing, you know, or a tool, I guess you should say, as I'm fishing. Is that something you guys have or looking into, or? Yeah,
so it's definitely something we're looking into. Obviously, it's, you know, Minn Kota does it. I don't know if Newport Wrestle does it or not. Do they have it? No, they don't have a.
Motor Guide might. Motor Guide. Right. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And it's definitely, you know, we're playing with that technology for sure. You're right. There are some really sort of bizarre. I mean, like a kayak is not supposed to have that much weight in front of it, pulling it with a propeller. Like it just doesn't act. It doesn't act right. It's not natural. Like when you have, you know, I think the Motor Guide motor is probably about 35 pounds just for the motor, right?
Right.
That's like having a 6-year-old sit in front of your kayak, like right at the very edge, and then pull a rope, right? Like it's
right.
It's not natural, so it doesn't feel really good in that sense. And it's not pushing your kayak; it's pulling your kayak, right? It has to, because that's how GPS works. Otherwise, it would just take you into all weird places, right? So I think it's not a very natural feeling. If you're trolling with it, I guess it's okay. But to get from A to B in it, it's probably not the best way to get from A to B. But I've seen people have multiple motors on their kayaks, one for spot locking.
That's those big money fishermen, you know what I mean? Where most of us, we fish with milk crates and all kinds of...
Right. Yeah, I think there is a whole sector of the industry that just, you know, just can't put enough stuff on your kayak, I guess. So that's cool.
I've seen one guy out recently with, it looked like 4 monitors, but definitely 3 monitors, and not the little small ones. It was the 7 to 9 inch ones.
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe 2, right? I could see 2, but he was all decked out around him. Like like casting and all the, I don't know. I think he had one in the cell mound, 2 on the sides, and one, it could have been a computer. I don't know, but that's a lot.
Some guys go out really decked out.
That's a lot of business going on.
It is. It's cool to see, though. There are people so creative, man. They just, I mean, we're always inspired by stuff we see, right? Because guys just come up with these amazing adapters and ways to like rig up their kayaks and boats. So it's cool to watch for sure.
I remember seeing one guy, right? This was probably when the GoPro first started coming out. He had all these arms, and then he had a little speaker phone with the fuzzy thing on it. And I was like, man, these guys are doing way too much to catch fish. But come to find out, right? YouTube channels,
Yeah.
that's how they make their money. That's what they do.
Yeah.
I respect that, right? I totally respect that.
Of course. Yeah.
When I'm first fishing in a kayak, 2 rods, maybe,
Yeah.
not very minimal, like not too much going on in my boat. Not, I like to stay
Sure.
light, like to move quick. But I'm out there on a different purpose than he was out there, right? His purpose is to teach people, get the information out there, and make money on YouTube. Which there's nothing better than, for me, I think, people that love to share their passion with other people and make a living while you're doing it, right? So I'm totally
Yeah.
for those guys. It was just when I first seen it, I'm like, man, you're doing way too much.
Yeah.
But
so guys definitely go out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so back to the spotlight. So we are definitely working. That's something we're working on for sure. So our big sort of selling feature in that aspect would be that at the end, if we do come up with something, it's going to weigh about 3 pounds. So if you can get yourself spot locked with about 3 pounds worth of gear, that's really cool, because then you
I
don't
think
have something
so.
weighing
I
you
think
down
so.
in the front of the kayak. So
Yeah.
so we're working on it. I don't have timelines, but it's definitely something that's on our radar and we're considering. So yeah.
Well, if you need help, man, I got a 360 you could put that on the front of, and
There you go.
I could put a
Yeah.
beating on it if you want me to.
Yeah. All right. Well, you gotta test it on someone. We'll let it
Yeah.
take you all the way out and see how far it takes you.
Yeah.
There you go. We can
Oh,
do that.
sorry, man. Sorry, I lost our remote.
Yeah, that sounds like something that would happen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting how from a kayaking perspective, how you have these purists out there who kayak fishing is just about the kayak, and you just take a rod and that's it.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like goal posting, where it gets pushed out. Okay, now the pedal drive market, now's the motor market.
Yeah.
And now it's just like you said, when I was working at Fishing Taco Limited, there's the local kayak shop, fishing shop here in Houston. The most expensive setup I sold was a little over $10,000, where it was a PA-17. They wanted the trailer, they wanted the fish finder, they wanted, I think, 2 Torpedo motors into it. And I'm like, why don't you buy a boat?
Yeah.
And the thing is, they'll probably take it out like twice and then be like, we're going to sell it. It didn't fit us. But we're going to buy a boat, right?
But now, like, motors are such a common thing that nobody really bats an eye on how, it's just part of how kayak fishing has evolved now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
There's definitely an evolution since when I first started kayak fishing. I mean, I think it was me and his buddy Jay Lee and Victor Cisneros were the only people that fished this area. I mean, it was rare to see a plastic boat out there on the water. I remember a guy telling me, like, dude, you're going to die in that thing out here, that little piece of plastic. And I tell this story all the time because it's funny. And I had a stringer full of fish, and he goes, we need to get one of those plastic boats. But I mean, this was several years back in Clear Lake, and not too many people. I mean, we could go out in East West Bay and not see another single kayaker. But now you can't hit a boat launch without seeing people out there. And I'm glad it's evolved, because it's just so much fun. It's so much joy. I love kayak fishing to my core. I even bought a boat and decided to get rid of that boat because I wasn't spending enough time in my kayak. I mean, that's how much I am a kayak fisherman.
Yeah. No, it's definitely its own sport, right?
Yeah. And you bringing up a lot of the so you have the app that potentially is going to be with updating firmware and stuff like that, and potentially down the line controlling the motor. You have your new battery that you've been talking about, potential spot lock down the line, way down the line. But what are we looking at in the future of kayak motors, and specifically Bixpy?
Yeah, so we're gonna sort of keep pushing along the new adapters that we develop with different kayak manufacturers. We've got one coming out with Hoodoo in a few weeks. So we just want to make sure we're there when somebody wants a simple out of the box solution, whether it's for kayaks or paddle boards or just sort of personal watercraft for now. Until we get to other spaces where we can get onto bigger boats and multiple people boats, sailboats maybe, and so on. So And we're going to try and take the same technology that's like super compact, super lightweight, innovative propeller systems and so on, and try to sort of expand on that idea. So
awesome. And I guess
I had there was a question, right? So somebody might have asked this too. I think I seen something. Is there the propel system is plastic, I believe, right?
The propeller is plastic. Yeah, I saw somebody asking that. Why can't it be a sharp metal?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So does that make a difference? And or adding an extra propeller? Like I seen people go from three prong to 4-prong propellers.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
or does it make it like I'm new to these motors, so can you explain a little bit on the knowledge of these things, the material versus the extra propeller, the weight and whatnot?
Right. So the plastic, first of all, is much cheaper to produce than a metal propeller. So a metal propeller would be exponentially more expensive to do than a plastic propeller, and it would provide almost no advantage. Like that motor is not strong enough to cut through real thick weed. No matter what you do with it, it's not. And the edge of the propeller that touches water is actually the blunt edge. So it wouldn't be able to cut through weed anyway. So we have a weed guard that sort of prevents a lot of the weed and garbage from getting in. It reduces your power a little bit, but it definitely helps, and it just gets rid of that annoyance to a large degree. In terms of adding more blades or less blades, so that goes back to what I was talking to you about, having a closed system, right? So what we did, we took the optimal battery that we could fit in a box. So we kind of worked backwards. We're like, okay, we want our battery to be to float. Okay, so if we want it to float, well, first of all, how long do we want it to last, right? We want to be able to be on the water for at least an hour at full speed. All right, well, that means we need this much battery, right? What kind of casing does it take to make that much battery float? That's what kind of casing it takes, right? And then sort of you get into the motor and we go, okay, well, now if I put another blade on this propeller, is it going to push more water? Yes, it'll push 5% more water, right? But it drains the battery 20% more quickly. So then, and it also heats up the motor to some degree now, because now you have a lot more contact and you've gained 5% output, but you've lost 20% battery and your motor is running hotter, so it's not as efficient, right? So it was this perfect balancing game of, okay, what if you put two blades then, right? Well, if you put two blades, the motor spins a lot faster. It puts out roughly the same amount. It's a lot easier on the battery, but now it's spinning faster, and that creates other friction problems with the shaft seal and all of that, right? So there is this perfect balancing game of, making that motor spin in its happiest spot, having the right battery to last as long as you want it to last, and having the right propeller to put out that amount of power without draining the battery too fast, right? So it's just sort of it's like baking a cake, right? If you put too much of one thing, it'll sort of ruin the entire deal. So that's
that would help with the longevity of your product, right? So you want something that's not going to be, hey, more power out the gate, but then lasts you about half a year, right? This is, hey, we got to find a good, nice spot so you can actually enjoy it and have it for a very long time. That's pretty interesting. I like that.
Yeah, and I see someone asking if we can have a slower speed and have that working off the phone app. So yeah. I mean, we do get the feedback that even sometimes at the slowest speed, it's a little too fast on some kayaks or for trolling. So, and we're constantly working on improving all of that. So yeah, that's definitely something that we're aware of. So
awesome. And actually, one other thing, when we're looking at the future of this tech, like I think we said this earlier, back in the day, when you talk about batteries, you're looking at that lead acid battery that weighs 20 pounds, 30 pounds. Mm-hmm. And now you have your battery for that you can just hold in your palm of your hand, basically. Right. And so, I mean, are we looking at potentially they're just going to continue getting lighter and smaller
Yeah, absolutely. I think on the one of the future productions of our product coming out, we're having a massive battery reduction size. So, and it just keeps happening every year, right? So the batteries get better, more reliable, and the same capacity batteries get slightly cheaper. I mean, COVID destroyed everything, right? COVID and the tariffs and all of that really made a mess in everything, right? And so prices went like just super unpredictable, right? And we're still not able to secure very stable pricing for lithium batteries, right? One day it goes up, one day it's down. It's still kind of unstable. It's probably the most unstable commodity we buy, right? But aside from that, I think it's just going to get better and better. I think, at some point maybe there'll be a different chemistry, but it's definitely on the constantly improving. So
awesome. And I guess we have a question. Let's actually just kind of go to some of the questions that we have in the chat here, which by the way, we are live. You can find us One Last Cast Podcast on Facebook or on YouTube. Just search on facebook.com/One Last Cast Podcast. We're live every other Tuesday. You can join us, ask questions, talk to our guests, talk to us, and we're more than happy to share some of your questions. From Jack here, another question that he had is there a way to shut off the beeps in the future? I know the beeps are indicators of how, especially errors that I've experienced. So I don't know if that's a good idea, but let's hear from you. What do you think about shutting off those beeps?
We've tried it without the beeper, and I know some people want it without the beeper, but it's really not a good experience. Like, you need that thing to give you feedback sometimes. And then when it's gone, you really miss it. And you're like, I kind of miss it because I don't know what it's doing. I don't even know if it's doing, especially because right now we don't have two-way. Well, we do have two-way communication, but we don't have a way to show the battery status on the remote. So that beeping is really kind of one of the ways that you're going through the speeds. That could be an app thing we could do in the future where we give you the ability to shut off the beeping or turn it on. So that's definitely something that is realistic to come within the realm of what we're doing in the near future. So
just make sure the beep comes from the phone.
Yeah.
It vibrates or something like that. I have a question that I actually saw from one of the Facebook posts that I shared onto a different group, so it's not on their chat right here. But if you were to give somebody who's looking between, let's say, like at the Old Town with the Minn Kota, what sets Bixpy apart from the other ones?
So really, that the function of portability, adaptability, size, and convenience. So we are at a point right now where we have, like I said, like 25 different adapters. More than a dozen of them will get you rigged up in less than a minute. So you can be from box to kayak or paddleboard to water in less than a minute with a system that weighs less than 10 pounds. And there's really nothing else like that out there.
All right, where can I find these, man? Where can I find this motor at? I'm sold right now.
Yeah. No, I mean that's really what our focus is.
That's really
like, from box to kayak to water, like just quick, right? Like
wow,
and
that's sold right there.
There's no drilling, I mean, some of them we do make more involved DIY adapters for guys who want to sort of rig up their own thing, or they have kayaks that are super unusual and they need a different gudgeon or like the rudder or adapter. But like I said, more than a dozen of our adapters are probably installed on a kayak in less than a minute. So it's like done, plug, remote's already synced. We even ship the batteries mostly charged, so you're on the water like within minutes. So
yeah, and actually, just to kind of highlight that, I currently own 4 kayaks. There are 3 Hobies, and one of them is a Lightning. Basically, between the Hobies, I've been able to switch out, depending on if I can take my Sport out, which is a 10-footer, take the Revo out, take the Lynx out. Actually, the Lynx is a little bit different because I'm waiting for you guys to make an adapter for the rudder on the Lynx, because I like the rudder mounts as opposed to the drive mount. But I've also loaned it out to some friends who they just purchased the adapter to their rudder mount for their paddle kayaks, and it's really easy to transfer between kayaks, and I think that's a very great benefit to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's really the selling feature, is that ease of use, lightweight, portable. And on your links, by the way, all you have to do is put 4 little holes in the bottom of your rudder, and you can just do your own DIY rudder.
Yeah, I'm afraid.
Don't be afraid. I've seen guys do it. It's not that bad.
Holes in a kayak, man.
No, not holes in your kayak.
Yeah, just a rudder. Just a rudder.
Yeah, it's the rudder, but it's just the drilling part. Right? It just hurts.
Everything. Yeah, I get it.
But that's very interesting. Man, I'm interested like that, because like the motor that I have, I have a pull pin, right? I got to hook that up, right? Set the battery in this area. My batteries are roughly about 7.5 pounds each. And I got to set that up, and then I got to connect those, and then I got to attach this jerry rig that I have so I can lift and drop the motor and then clip it down. Right. Versus, hey, look, drop it in, clip it, boom, you're gone.
Right. So that's exactly what we did. So we looked at all of that, and we're like, all right, let's just simplify all this. So then plus, if you took an old-fashioned trolling Minn Kota, let's say, if you drop that entire thing into salt water with the head and everything, it would get ruined, right? Whereas you can submerge our entire system, in salt water, and it'll be fine, right? Because it's all made to go into salt water, all of it, not just some of it. So.
Yeah, and and I think that portability is great. And for me, I have 2 of those the P328 batteries. Because I use it one to go one way and then the other one's to come back. But that allows me to go probably 6 to 7 miles out and then to go back. And along with the drive, I don't really ever burn through 2 batteries, in a day.
So that sounds about right.
And so another question here is, and actually this is a good question because I've been thinking about connecting a GoPro to it. Is there a way to connect other items to your battery, maybe an adapter, or in the future something like that? I know that there is an adapter port that you can put to accessories.
So there is on the smaller battery, we do have an auxiliary port that you can sort of plug a waterproof cable into, and then you can run lights. You can do 5-volt GoPros and cameras and phones and so on. And then there's also 12-volt out that will do other bigger stuff. But the 12-volt is not good for running fish finders at the same time as you're running the motor, because you will get fuzz on your screen, just because all the sort of activity in the motor really interferes with the sonar. So.
Awesome.
So we recommend fish finders should really have their own batteries. You shouldn't hook a fish finder into a motor battery. So.
Another question that I got on the chat here from CB Sims. What is the chance the app showing charge monitor or remote updated to show the batteries? And I think you kind of discussed that earlier.
It's a pretty good chance. Yeah.
Okay.
We're working on it. It's funny because that whole app thing was again another one of those things where I just thought, any 14-year-old in their basement can make an app, right? Boy, making apps is really hard. So that was quite much bigger task than we thought. But we got it connected. It's good. We have an infrastructure that allows connection to it now, which is really nice. And we didn't have that in the first few versions of the product. And that's a huge step up when we went to the K1s with the new batteries. We made sure that everything has that Bluetooth connectivity. So then for future sort of expansion and development, and that's a really big difference between the first iterations of the product and the second iterations. Cosmetically and user interface is very, very similar. You always wouldn't know the difference. But with the new products, we're able to get into the product and really sort of, deep dive into the product and solve problems and troubleshoot later if something comes up, and then add features as we move on. So.
And I'm about to say that you must know smarter 14-year-olds than I do, because at 14 years old, I would not be able to develop an app.
Yeah, there are, man. There are.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, wasn't me for sure.
Yeah, so I guess we've kind of gone through a lot of the questions that we've got on here, but if somebody's interested in getting a Bixby, how would they go about doing that?
The fastest, easiest way is probably our website, and that usually deliver within 24 hours. All lithium batteries get shipped ground, so depending where you're in the country, it takes anywhere from 1 to 4 days to get it. We do have retailers in California, and Florida, and Texas, up north as well, and we're sort of post-COVID now. Things are getting back to normal for us a lot, so we're going to start hitting up retailers more and trying to expand that, trying to expand our network a little bit. But most of it right now is direct to consumers, so on our website.
Yep. And another thing I do want to point out is Bixby has great customer service. I had some issues with my battery, and I contacted them, and we had a resolution with less than 24 hours. And I made a mistake on ordering a part one time, and they got it fixed real quick. So you want to give a shout out to your customer service.
Thank you. Yeah, we haven't figured out how to do bad customer service yet. Maybe it'll come with size. No, I mean, so we're all here, and we all always pick up the phone and answer the emails, and no one's allowed to go home until all the emails for the day have been answered, right? And we always pick up the phone because we don't know how not to. So people call and they're surprised someone's answering the phone. And we're like, what else would we do? I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. So,
yeah, you need an automated system with a whole bunch of numbers to dial, and then at the end it just hangs up on them.
It's on our to-do list.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. No, and honestly, we tried to even put an automated system in, and it became more headache for us. And so we're just just talk to people, man. People call, just answer the phone and just talk to them because they want to talk to someone. So, so just do that. That's the simplest way. But yeah.
And before we actually head off, there's another question that came on here. And it's a good question. What does Bixby mean? Where did that name come from?
It means nothing. It's
no.
Meanings. I know.
Oh, come on. There has to be some story behind it or something.
No, it actually in Greek it means nothing. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
In ancient Greek. No, it doesn't have a meaning, honestly. So we made a list of, I think, 114 names that we came up with. I think 5 of them had the URLs available. So we purchased all those URLs just to see which one we'll end up with. And then we put it out to a bunch of friends and so on. We said, hey, which one of these do you like best? And Bixby came out the winner. So we picked the names based on phonetics and how they sound, and five no more than 5 letters and all of that. But at the end of the day, it was that's what it was. It was just I wish it was a better story. And I've been told so many times by marketing firms that we should have a better story for this. I'm like, I'm sorry, man. That's all there was to it.
That's a kind of a story in itself, and I guess it perfectly represents how you guys started, anyways. So
yeah.
But no, I really appreciate you coming on and talking Bixby with us. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah. And again, if you guys are interested in buying a Bixby motor, either find a local retailer that has them, or you can go to Bixpy.com and go directly to their website and find it there. And I guess, Merriel, I always put you on the spot, but did you have any parting nuggets of wisdom before we hop off from today's episode?
Oh, yeah. It's not the weather that's bad. It's your fishing gear that's bad. So I was out there in rainy, cold weather, but I was in good gear. So don't let weather hold you back from fishing. Get out there and get the right gear. Maybe we'll do an episode on the gear that I use, because that might help out some of these people. I've heard several comments like, man, dude, you're out there in this crazy weather. And I'm like, it's not bad if you got the right gear on. Yeah. I guess that's like fishing in general, right? It's not really that bad if you have the right gear.
It's
Get
like
your
everything
trolling
else.
motor with the nice battery. Enjoy life.
Hey, I grew up in Canada, so at some point your gear is what allowed you to do what you wanted to do.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't get cold in Texas, and it got down to 22 degrees, which is pretty cold from down here. So we were.
hey, we're in a state of emergency right now in San Diego because of the rain the last 2 days. Yeah,
Oh,
it's crazy here. I don't know if you guys saw. There's
yeah.
rivers running through the city and taking people's cars and stuff.
So we have state of emergencies, like when temperatures drop below a certain degree, they shut down schools, they shut down, and literally no snow, no nothing, maybe a little bit of ice on the road.
That's funny.
We make a big deal about it down here.
It's all
maybe a couple busted pipes. That's about it.
Yeah.
That's when we go fishing. That's all when we go fishing.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again. Thanks again for
Houman
for coming on.
Me.
Yep. And if you guys are interested in listening more to the One Last Cast podcast, you can find us at onelastcastpodcast.com or on facebook.com/One Last Cast podcast. We're also on YouTube. We're still kind of on Twitch. I'm trying to figure that out right now, but just find us or find us on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. And then before we head off, I do want to give another shout out to our sponsors. Give a shout out to Dirty South Kayakers. If you're looking for a Facebook group to join, head on over there to talk fishing around the Texas coast. Knock and Tail Lures, I believe they're going to be at the Houston Boat Show. If not, if you're looking for soft plastics, they're the best ones on the market. Go to knockandtaillures.com and you can order them there. And also give a shout out to 4A Printing. They do have our custom merch, such as our buffs and towels. And if you're looking for something like that, give Aaron a shout. He will hook you up. And of course, Brittany Solesky, Merrill's lovely wife. She does real estate here in Houston. So if you're looking for residential or commercial, give her a shout. Give her a call at 281-740-0498 or Brittany, that's BRITNEY at grindstonereg.com. That's it from the One Last Cast podcast. You guys have a good one, tight lines, and we'll see you out there.
Take care.
Take care, guys.
Bye.